Good afternoon from the Den here in South London. Let's give this a go for the second time, because the first one didn't seem to want to play ball with the dodgy internet connection. 3 points, and a big 3 points for Hull City. A 1-0 win here against Millwall. The first Hull City victory at the Den since 2013. So long ago is it that City have claimed 3 points in Bermondsey, and possibly their biggest for quite a while, because it's a second straight away win coming on the back of that win at Ewood Park. And although the stats will say the game was fairly even, I did feel that City were good value for this, that they were the better looking of the two teams. And it took until just before the hour for the deadlock to be broken. An own goal from Jake Cooper, long bursting run, not the first of many actually, sorry, one of many from Ruben Selles down the right hand side, getting into the box, putting the ball into a dangerous area, and it hit Cooper and kind of spun into the back of the net, which, particularly given the fact there were, 1,700 away fans behind the goal there, many of which had left the MKM Stadium at God knows what time this morning. It was one of those kind of magical moments, and I think as a fan, you know, there are some things about being a fan that are really hard, aren't there? You know, and you get up, it's stupid o'clock, you pay all sorts of money to travel to the capital, and you get a 1-0 away win. It's those, it kind of makes it all worthwhile. And then for those fans that, you know, got up at 3-4 o'clock this morning to travel down here, yes, the club put on a lot of free coaches, which is huge credit to the club for doing that, but credit for the fans that bothered to turn up. And yeah, that is one of the, for all the crap you see so often away from home, not just supporting Hull City, but so many clubs up and down the country, unless you're one of the teams that win at the top of the Premier League, that win week after week after week, it can be a long old slog, can't it? But days like today kind of just make it worthwhile, and the fans were brilliant behind the goal. They really enjoyed that moment. It was really special at the end, as it was at Ewood Park before New Year, to see Ruben Selles and his players celebrating in front of the away supporters, because that is a big victory. It moved, you know, obviously there's games happening as we do this. I know, and obviously Cardiff beat Swansea. But what that result has done is move City out of the bottom three. It's also, more importantly, actually, dragged a host of other teams above City into the relegation mix. And on this evidence, you know, they aren't going to be relegated, because if they can replicate that level of performance for the, you know, in the remaining 19 games, they are going to be. Yeah, John, I'll come on to Carl Joseph in just a minute. If they replicate that level of performance, they're going to be fine. The challenge is replicating that performance, and it's something that we've wanted to see week after week after week. We've called for it when they've won a game before. They've not backed it up. They didn't back it up after the Swansea game. They didn't back it up after the win at Blackburn. They then obviously drew against Leeds United, and they have backed it up today with a victory. I think if you'd have said before the Leeds game, we'll give you 4 points from Leeds and Millwall, you'd have absolutely snapped your hand off. So I think that's a really good return. It's back-to-back clean sheets, which is something that we've talked long and hard on these videos about throughout the season, about their inability to keep clean sheets. And if I'm brutally honest, I didn't really feel that. There were a couple of nervy moments in the first half, particularly when balls went in and Jafet Tanganga, who is a very, very good centre-half at this level, got his head to one or two. But they never looked in that much danger. You know what you're going to get. It's a cliche, of course, it is coming to Millwall, that from long throws in the box, from set pieces, they're going to be a threat. So don't be daft enough to give away fouls in and around the penalty area. And at times, particularly early on, City were a bit daft. They were giving away one or two too many cheap free kicks, and there was one particularly in the first couple of minutes where City had started really well on the front foot, had looked a threat. They gave away a daft foul just down on the left-hand side here, and the ball, I think it was Joe Bryan, who's a very good player at this level, with his left foot picked it in, put the ball in, and Tanganga got up and met it, and Rushworth, we'll come to that in a minute, made a really, really good save. But they kept him at arm's length. Yeah, Danny, Lou, you're all right. And we've just spoken to Carl Rushworth, actually, well, I say just, probably an hour or so ago. And I sort of said to him, look, as a debut away at Millwall, that's pretty tough. Again, it's the cliche, at Millwall, it's going to be difficult. But he wasn't really tested. You know, the stats say that that Millwall had 7 shots on goal, and I'm thinking, yeah, but he's not had the save to make, has he, really? And even when referee Stephen Martin put 6 minutes of added time up, I expected it to be a bit of an onslaught. And there were a couple of long throws and a couple of crosses into the penalty area. Thankfully, George Honeyman, God bless him, slammed a cross into the upper tier, the Cold Blow Lane stand over there, which didn't go down well with the locals, who are so angry. Oh my God, they're angry. We're obviously surrounded by them in the main stand, and I've never heard a home support quite like Millwall. And I love coming here, genuinely. I'm not just saying it, I love coming to Millwall. There's something special about this place. It's rough, it's a throwback to the 70s in some respects. It's I enjoy coming here, but their fans don't half get behind, give their players some stick when it's not going well. The C word, sort them out, you lazy C word, that was one of, they'd play a pass out of play and they'd boo them, they'd jeer them. The manager was called clueless for making a couple of changes. He's only been in the job a couple of weeks, bless him, Alex Neil. But yeah, like you said, Danny, it was a proper workman-like performance. It really was. It was what you need when you're scrapping, when you're fighting at the bottom of the table, at any point in the table, really, coming to Millwall. But they kept them at arm's length, and actually, after the goal went in and the fans were going wild, they created a really good move. Joe Gowhart off the bench looked bright, laid it into Regan Slater. Regan was very good today, I thought. Edge of the box, right in the D, and all he's got to do is hit the target, and I thought he'd have scored, and he dragged it wide. And there were a couple of other moments. Kamara had one in the first half where they opened the pitch up brilliantly from the left, played through, Pedro out wide to Kamara, just lacked a bit of incisiveness in front of goal that we saw against Leeds a couple of weeks ago, and it was saved by Jensen. He was the busier of the goalkeepers, in truth. Rushworth, as debuts go, was fairly quiet, but what he did do, Carl, he looked assured in everything, particularly his footwork. He was very, very good. He came for crosses when he needed to. There was one moment second half where the ball came out. He had to come out of his box and head clear. But this was a really, really organised performance. It wasn't a game for the purist. It never is coming to Millwall, particularly this time of season. The pitch is dry. Is bobbly. It's not great. The weather's terrible. And particularly, as I mentioned, when you're in City's position, it is about just getting a result and get back on the train and go home. And that's what they've done. They've got 3 points in their pocket. Happy days. And it's moved teams like Derby. They're back. They're being dragged into it. Obviously, Luton have gone into the bottom three ahead of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. So what you're doing, although Cardiff have won, Plymouth have lost. Plymouth are going to go down, I think. What it has done is, as I said before, it's dragged teams like Derby and Luton right back into it. And it's the perfect start, isn't it? We've got a 3-game week. We've got Queen's Park Rangers, who are in great form, coming on Tuesday night, and then the small matter of Sheffield United at Bramall Lane next Friday night. But to take 3 points, in the first of a 3-game week is such a big boost for City. It really is. Pedro. Look, he's a comedy character, isn't he? You can't help but love João Pedro. There was a moment. I think it was in the second half, but it starts to blend. They all start to some moments start to blend into each other, and there was like some kind of just nonsense on the edge of the City. But it must have been the second half actually. There was some nonsense in the edge of the City box, and it was being tapped around, and nobody could get hold of the ball. And Pedro's just come in, blazed in, and blasted it into the crowd. And, admittedly, if it had hit some old fella in the face, he might have had a problem. But he is a bit of a comedy character, and he just he works his knackers off. I nearly said something else here, but it's a family show, I can't do that. But he just works so hard, and you've got to admire João Pedro. And his unfortunately, the problem that City have got and João Pedro have got is that his mind works quicker than his body. And if you're over 30, I'm now over 40, we can all empathise with João. That you get to a certain age, and while your mind still might be quite active and still it might be quite quick, unfortunately your body takes a while to catch up, and that is the case with João at times. But you cannot fault the guy's effort. He's come in, as I say, he works his socks off. He's got some vital goals this season, and he put in a real display. It's difficult to pick out anybody because it was a proper team effort. I don't know. Let me just scroll up and see who said it, because it was a really good point. Yeah, Stephen. It was a proper team effort, and you don't win at Millwall, or rarely do you win at Millwall with a bit of individual brilliance and the rest of the team don't turn up. If you're going to win here, you've got to be at it. All 11 players from back to front, goalkeeper to striker, have got to be at it. Rushworth was right through to João Pedro. But you look at the spine, I thought Alzate again was exceptional in the middle of the park, well supported by Puerta. I thought Slater, the amount of work, I'd love to see Slater's running starts. He never stopped. Alzate, there were a couple of moments right at the start of the second half where City started slowly. Alzate sort of he was facing his own goal, tried to kick it over his head, missed it. Millwall got in, and then he had to make a foul, sort of 10 yards from the edge of the penalty area. That was the only real error that I can think Alzate made. He's just quality on the ball. He reads the game so well. He was brilliant. But you kind of have to talk about the back the back four, the goalkeeper as well, but the back four. They suffered the blow of losing Louis Coyle quite early on. We don't know how serious that's going to be. He has got to go to hospital to have it looked at. He got a kick on his ankle right down in front of us, and it was funny because you could look. He looked straight at the dugout and was like, "This hurts." Yeah, Neil. Yeah, just covering call now. It was like you could see it hurt him, and apparently, so he's took a crock on his ankle, and he's also got a fairly deep cut as well. So, I think he's going to hospital, but it is only a precaution just to get it. Just to get it cleaned up more than anything. So at this stage we don't know if it's severe or if it's going to be he's going to be okay for Tuesday night. So we will be with Ruben on Monday. If we find out before, we'll let you know. But obviously we are going to be with the gaffer on Monday, so we'll get an update on him. Yeah, Harry, that's the risk, isn't it? But let's worry about the now. Next season will take care of itself. Alzate is, and ultimately, look. And I've been critical of the club's transfer policy and some of the players they've signed over the last couple of years. But Alzate was a free transfer. The likelihood is if he was to, I'm not trying to sell him. Of course I'm not. But if he keeps up this form, he is going to attract interest. And if he was to be sold in the summer, City will get something for him. So that is actually quite a good bit of business, isn't it? Because he came in on a free transfer. Even if they sold him for a tenner tomorrow, they've made a profit. So that is. He's been brilliant. But yeah, let's go back to the goalkeepers the defence, because Sean McLaughlin was moved to the left back today. Matty Jacob wasn't deemed fit enough to be in from the start. He was on the bench. We'll come to Ryan Giles a bit later. We'll do a transfer roundup because there's a lot to talk about. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, Maka came in and we did some research before the game. We think his last game at left back for City was in a competitive game, that is, against Stevenage in the FA Cup. A cup, 3 or 4 years ago. I thought McLaughlin was absolutely brilliant on the left side today. Really, really good. And huge credit to Finn Burns as well. That was his first start since the defeat to Sheffield United in September. Had a really rocky start against Ivanovic up front, gave away a couple of soft free kicks, but sort of he recovered, and I thought Finn Burns was tremendous. Alfie Jones was just sensational again. He's had a rocky. He had a rocky start to the season. We talked about this, didn't we, before, Alfie? But we're starting to see the Alfie Jones that Grant McCann described as a Rolls Royce, and he took on the skipper's armband after Louis went off. And there were a couple of dicey moments in both halves where City got themselves in a bit of bother. Jones was there to deal with it, and Jones looks like every bit of the defender that we saw last season alongside Jacob Greaves. And there have been 1 or 2 City fans that have said, look, maybe Jones isn't as good as we all thought. Maybe it was Greavesy that was making him look better. I didn't agree with that myself. Personally, I think Jones is a top centre half at this level, and we are now seeing it in a system that suits him, under a manager that wants him to focus on defending, but also knowing that Jones is a very, very cultured footballer and can play football and can bring the ball out and can make good passes. And his experience alongside Burns, and a word for Cody Drame as well, because this isn't an easy environment to come into when you're coming on midway through a first half in a game like that. But his first involvement was he was bombing down the right hand side, and he put an absolute belter of a cross in that unfortunately there was nobody there to get on the end of. Pedro just couldn't quite, as I say. I think his mind was heading the ball in the back of the net. Unfortunately, his body couldn't get him in that place. But I thought Drame was very, very good when he came on as well. We know Drame is very good going forward as well. So, look, again, we've hammered this team at times this season because defensively they have been a shambles at times. Some of their errors have been, you have to see it to be believed, really. But away at Blackburn, when they needed it, when they needed a proper dogs of war performance, they got a bit of luck. You need it, of course you do. You can't. No team wins a game of football without a bit of luck. They got it, and again today. But I thought to a man, they as a team they defended from the front. They defended really well. I can't argue with that. I tell you, Jones is a very, very good player. And thankfully for Alfie and for the team, we're starting to see a bit more of it now under this manager. But they just look more organised. if you've watched them under Ruben Selles, you know what they're like. They look organised, they're competitive, they're in games. They just the thing for me at half time was they just lacked that little bit of quality in the final third. You know, Kamara went through a couple of times, didn't make the most of it. That final ball, but we've been saying that all season. That's nothing new. We know there's been a massive lack of quality in the final third. But you know, what I would say is that result today is one for just their work ethic and their grit and determination, because you know, Regan bombing down the right hand side and getting that cross in, and they earned that little bit of luck, and they've not had much of it all season. As bad as they were, you know, in the first few months of the season, and they were at times awful. They didn't have. You have to be fair. They didn't have a huge amount of luck, so they did get that today. So right, that's probably enough on the game. Just a quick mention for the 3 new players. Gauhart came off the bench, looked bright, as I say. Played a nice ball across for Slater, and Regan should have done better in fairness, missed the target. And then he shifted when Amrabat came on. Gauhart shifted to the other side, and Millwall were breaking, tracked back, gave away a foul, clever foul. Again, gamesmanship, you need to do it, you've got to play the game. Got himself a booking, but that was a decent move. So he looked bright, and Amrabat was certainly heavily involved. He came away, he came on, I should say, gave away a really poor free kick. You know, oh God, here we go. But then he won his fair share of free kicks, and there was one moment that I think it was in stoppage time. City cleared the lines, and he was breaking away towards the Millwall goal. He was pulled back, fouled. The referee bizarrely gave a free kick against Amrabat, but he looked lively, he was committed, he got involved. Matt Crooks, difficult to make too much of a he didn't have too much to do. Probably the biggest thing that Matt Crooks did was take about 5 minutes to try and get his ring off his finger when he was trying to come on, which absolutely, I mean, as I say, for the moment before City scored, this lot were absolutely incandescent with rage. They were apoplectic when Crooks was taking ages over trying to get his jewellery off. So the game stopped. The referee came across. Alex Neil was having words. His assistant was having words. And of course that time got added on. But what it did do, it was quite clever from Crooks, because it stopped any momentum that Millwall were trying to get up in that last few minutes. And yeah, it did the job. So that's it in terms of the game. You know, as I say, big 3 points, sets us up beautifully for Tuesday night. And I've maintained this throughout the season, that this team doesn't lack fight. This team doesn't lack, you know, players that care and want to battle for the team and for the club. And that performance, as I say, not many Hull City. There hasn't been a Hull City team that have won here for 12 years. So, you know, give them a bit of credit, because they earned that today. And as I say, it was great to see the scenes at the end. So many fans that have made the trip down to enjoy that moment, made it all worthwhile. Before we go, obviously we need to touch on transfers. Where are we at? So they've signed 3 players, all of which came off the bench today. They've agreed a fee. Well, in fact, I've been told the deal for Carl Joseph is pretty much done, and there's an expectation that he will be at the club and could even train on Monday. So Carl Joseph, striker, 23-year-old striker from Blackpool, wasn't in the squad, was pulled out of the squad, the Blackpool squad today, that drew 2-2 with Huddersfield at Bloomfield Road. City have agreed a £2.5 million fee for. Sorry, I was just reading what Paul was saying there about the linesman. Yeah, he did. Yes, I didn't know that. That's a bit bizarre. So just for those that are watching, Paul says it was the linesman who insisted he removed his ring, even though it was taped up. Yeah, that's a bit odd, isn't it? Because you can wear rings as long as they are taped up. But anyway, so, you know, if maybe the Millwall fans might like to direct that eye at the officials, which they, in fairness, they at times did that as well. But yeah, let's go back to Carl Joseph, 23-year-old striker, scored 7 times in League One for Blackpool, born in London, under 21 Scotland international, very, very highly thought of. Obviously, 2.5 million is a big outlay on a striker that is coming from League One. So City obviously believe in Carl Joseph as a player, and he will be their player as well. I think that's important to get that balance in January between signing players on loan and making signings that are yours to keep. You know, and so Kyle is one of those. So we expect Carl Joseph, as long as there's no issues, that'll all be announced hopefully on Monday or Tuesday, and he could even be in the squad for the QPR game at the MKM Stadium on Tuesday night. Lincoln Henrique, the Brazilian attacker from Fenerbahce, he arrived in England yesterday, Friday. He's going to be having his medical, I'm told, on Monday, with a view to signing a loan deal until the end of the season. Harry, I'll come to that in a minute. Yeah, so Lincoln Henrique arriving. He's in England. He flew in yesterday. Medical on Monday. They do need to do. He has had a recent. I say recent. I think it was in 2023 an ACL. So they'll need to make sure that's thorough. But it is a loan deal. So they just need to be careful with that one. So that we would expect early next week that Lincoln, Henrique, and Carl Joseph will be confirmed as Hull City players. So that will take the tally to 5. We are still expecting more. They want a centre half still. They want a left back, and because they want a left back, that means that Ryan Giles is now almost certain to join Middlesbrough. He was left out of the squad here today. We understand, as we've said, God knows for months now, that Middlesbrough want him. They wanted him back in the summer. Didn't get him because City decided they wouldn't sell him. Or they've had a change of heart and decided they will sell him. So Giles is expected to go to Middlesbrough, which means City are actively recruiting a left back. Luke, I'm not saying yes or no to Sorba Thomas. Sorba Thomas is a very, very good player at this level, but I'm saying nothing on that one. So Giles off to Middlesbrough, we expect, not involved today. Matty Jacob was back on the bench. As I say, Maka did a tremendous job. It's not a permanent fixture, you can't do that permanently, but as a stopgap, Maka did a tremendous job today. Ryan Longman, not involved today. Oxford want him. I suspect Ryan may have played his last game for Hull City as well. So that's 2 players. So Giles and Longman going, joining Malem and Jarvis, who have already gone. We also expect Bedia and Richopi to both go. So more outgoings. They still want a winger. Now, the winger that we've been talking about for weeks is not Amrabat, is not Lincoln or anybody out. They are still in talks. I say in talks. They are waiting on something to try and get that deal over the line. The winger that we've been talking about for a long time. Now, I don't believe it's anything to do with City. I think it's to do with the other side of the coin, and the players all agreed. Everything with the player is agreed. So it is frustrating. I think City are frustrated with it, as they would be. They believe that they had a deal that should have been done last weekend. They had everything in place. They had as I understand it, they had a hotel and a medical booked for this player, but it's been held up, and as I understand it, it's still held up. So we just have to be patient. It might take a bit of time. Everything with the player is agreed. The contract is a permanent deal. They've agreed the fee. It's just that there is a slight hold up, which is kind of holding it back, funnily enough. So we just have to be patient on that. But look, we all wanted business done quickly. We all wanted players in quickly. They've got 3 in that have made their debuts today. They've got 2 more, on the cusp of it. So they are working hard to get those deals done, and I think, they're going into it. They've signed 3, 2 more to come, and probably 2 or 3 more that we might see before the end of the window. So, but as this season is about staying up, but I think long term we've got to get away from this crazy amount of churn, this turnover of players that the club are doing. 50 or 60 arrivals in the last 3 years is far too many, and they've got to get away from that. They've got to get to a base where they have a settled squad, and they're making 2 or 3 additions, in the summer, even less in January, because that's never a good time to do business. But we are where we are. They've got to do what they've got to do to get out of this mess and get stable and survive in the Championship. So if that means signing 4 or 5, 6 players in January, which they've done and are doing, then fine. But I think going forward, and particularly under Ruben, I just want it to be a bit more stable. I want it to be more thought out, less scattergun. We're seeing it here, aren't we? We're seeing it with Amrabat. We're seeing it with Lincoln. Gary, it's just I want things to calm down. It isn't going to happen this month, obviously, but hopefully, if this manager is in charge for the next 18 months, maybe that is what we might get. But we have to wait and see. The lights there weren't many lights on at the Den. Slightly concerningly, the one exit out of here is just the light's gone off in that. So fingers crossed I'm not stuck here at the Den for any longer than I have to be. That's it. That's kind of where we're at with the transfers. There's a lot going on, but Joseph, I'm told, is near. I'm not going to say done, because every time I say done, I get hammered, and it ends up taking another 10 days, and people start fretting, and things, it is what it is. So, although I've been told it's done, I'm going to say it's almost done, and we hope that the player arrives for training on Monday. We'll have to wait and see. So that's pretty much it from here at what is now a very dark and freezing den. Canary Wharf. I can barely see Canary Wharf over in the distance there. A big 3 points for Hull City. Absolutely brilliant battling performance. Not a classic, scrappy, everything you'd expect coming here. But who cares? Hull City have won by a goal to nil. They're out the bottom three, or they were before all the other games today. And we can look forward to Queen's Park Rangers on Tuesday night. We'll have the podcast with you on Monday morning, probably coming out about, we're recording Monday morning. Myself, Fletch, Prutz, the legend that is Prutz, and Catherine Batty, who was in the away end this afternoon. We'll have that with you just before lunchtime on Monday. We'll be with Ruben Selles on Monday afternoon, and then we'll obviously have the game for you on Tuesday. Much more to come, plenty of stuff to come out of my chat with Ruben Selles just a minute ago. Probably some of that will be going up in the morning. Of course, it's the 3-year anniversary of Adjun's ownership tomorrow. So congratulations to Adjun, if he's going to have a celebratory kind of Diet Coke to acknowledge his 3rd-year anniversary. It's been eventful, hasn't it? I don't think we could, argue that point. It might not have gone quite how we all would have liked on the pitch, in fairness, but I don't think anybody can say it's been dull since Adjun bought the club 3 years ago tomorrow. And I sense what is going to come down the track will not be dull either. Anyway, it keeps us all in the job. It gives us something to talk about. It gives you lot something to watch. It's as I say, it's entertaining if nothing else, isn't it? So yes, that's it from here at the Den. If you're on your way back to East Yorkshire, I salute you. Have a safe journey back. For everybody else, enjoy the rest of the weekend, which I'm sure you probably will do on the back of 3 massive points here in South London.